Okay, here we go. This is how it always starts. Breathing exercises.
I just turned 50 waiting for this thing to start, Schumacher. I'm 49 and 1/12. Come on.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Did I Do That? It is a podcast about making graphic design and making mistakes because it's all part of the process. I'm Sean Schumacher, and joining me today, a very special guest. He is a legend of the Portland design scene. In 2004, he founded his own studio where he does a little bit of everything, from branding to merch to illustration to pop-up shops to Skillshare courses, and way more than that. Plus, you can find his book, Pretty Much Everything, in bookstores just about everywhere.
Yeah.
It is the one, the only, Aaron Draplin. Hello.
Well, thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Hi. Welcome to the backyard here. Thank you for coming across the river and braving the, when I go slumming down in the lowlands where you guys operate. Okay. Thank you for coming to the highlands. We're about 200 feet higher.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Just
that.
a little smidge. When you come up Sandy and 60th, you go about 200 feet up. So welcome to the alpine meadows of, the foothills of Mount Hood out here. But thank you.
They call this part of town the 200-foot high city.
We are technically we're technically Roseway, right? And I always forget, there's lots of Rose things in town, but we're called Roseway, and I've been here 18 years. This is my home and where I live and stuff, but the backyard, I've been here about 4.5 years. We got in the summer of 2018, a couple years before things got weird, but we've been, if I make it through the night, number one, if I make it through to next June, that'll be 5 full years in the backyard. But and the idea is we were downtown, right across the river from you guys.
Yeah.
But it was harder and harder to park. And we were spending a lot of time sitting in traffic on Sandy Boulevard. What does that even mean?
And your old studio was in an industrial part of town on the other side of the train tracks. The tracks where the trains just stop sometimes.
It would rattle your little fillings right out of your little diseased teeth. A couple times I had to park on the other side of the tracks because there was an event going on, or I couldn't get my van into the basement, so I'd have to park on the other side of the tracks. And then I would be leaving at 2 a.m, and there would be a freighter out there just kind of idling, just ding, 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 the whole thing. And then one time, I'm standing there fuck, it's not going to take off. What if it goes for an hour?
Yeah.
2 hours.
And it does sometimes.
I need to drive home. So I climb my little dainty petite Aaron Draplin up the little tick tick tick, crossed, run down. So I was breaking the law.
You actually climbed onto the.
How do you get across? No, I started to look all the way down.
Wow.
I guess I could go out to where it's, walk all the way down the tracks. But I saw other people doing it, but that's so dangerous. But that, those funny little instances, or, me who's an animal, sure, I was able to do that. But what about when it's your buddy who's just kind of spending the night and we're working late on a project all weekend long and they have to go park over there? It kind of started to get freaky. One time a buddy jumped into his car and sat on a guy's head because the guy climbed in through his window, and it was dark and he couldn't see, and it was cold and rainy out, and he was sleeping in there. And my buddy, scared the hell out of my buddy, but sort of indicative of people need help. And we, it scared my friend, but we're kind of Portlanders where we're like, well, this happens sometimes here. What are you going to do? So,
but you've got this lovely studio here. We're sitting next to your record collection, which is taller. I think if you stacked us on top of each other, I think I couldn't reach the top.
It goes to 10 foot. I can't even reach the top two. Those are extras. So the Melvins come out with a new record, I buy 2 copies. I play one. I play with one. I put one away. And someday I'll trade it, because it's all just kind of getting value up there. You know? I'm that kind of asshole who missed the boat on some band, and I go buy the record 4 years later that came out, and it's already dead. It's gone. It's only on these Discogs and eBays, and I'm paying double. So there's a weird little economy to that. Also a friend will come over and say, "Ooh, you have an extra copy of," so I just give it to him. I don't give a shit, whatever. So
that's
if you're looking for any Maroon
great.
5, I have a big stack. I'm lying. Anyway, no, okay.
The market for Maroon 5 records has never been hotter.
Those poor guys, I just trash them all the time. nice bunch of people. Anyway.
Wasn't that the guy who was sending pictures to somebody?
I made that joke somewhere, and someone said, "Well, you know what he did now?" And I don't know what he did now.
I don't feel great confidence that I know what he did.
I mean, we have these jokes here because I like to go and what's a technical term? Shit on a band that I think shouldn't be a big giant thing, like Greta Van Fleet or something horrible.
I don't even know who that is.
Don't even go there. But it makes me mad because they're marketable and they're this and they're that, and it's this creepy thing where the bands I love, they get 1/100th of what these turds get, and it pisses me off. So, the things that I have on this wall, they do come from, smaller beginnings and crusty little things. So, if I have a Metallica section, I grew up around that stuff, but you're going to find every Flaming Lips record because when I was a kid, they were tiny and improbable, and that was something that spoke to me because I came from a shitty little Midwestern town like they do.
Yeah.
Oklahoma City versus, northern Michigan, middle of nowhere. That really spoke to me. So that's, this is kind of a weird, monolith to the things that I love the art, or I love the songs, or I love that someone was able to get away with 15 Jesus Lizard records. By the way, they're a real danceable outfit, these fucks. But I love that. I grew up with this stuff. Yeah.
What kind of music does Jesus Lizard play?
Well, the danceable. Oh, it's a real grinding, angular. I don't know how to say it. It's macho in a weird way. But,
okay.
They were a guitar rock and roll band. And they fucking ripped. And they were very visceral. And when you went and saw them, at Satyricon here in Portland.
Oh, sure.
They were at one with the crowd. Yeah. And a complete lack of pretense as far as like wear something you're not. They would make fun of the crowd. I saw them play La Luna one time here in Portland. This is long before you were born, Sean. Where like they turned the lights on.
Oh,
and they were
like
done.
The house lights?
Yeah, house lights on, and they turned the music off, and they finished the couple songs to the crowd, like basically just singing along. And, and because maybe they went over a curfew, but that really affected me as a kid. Like, cool. It can be pure that way. They can be, you can get kicked by the singer. Basically he was on top of the crowd, and you were this. What's fun is they've done a couple reunions, these guys, and they're not getting any younger. I'm almost 50. I'm 11 months away from 50. So the idea that these guys are 65 years old or something up there, doing a reunion show, trying to make some money.
That's a hell of a thing.
And I got to go see this maybe 7, 8, 5, 10 years ago, whatever. It's pretty fun because it makes you feel 22 again.
Yeah.
And yet you look around, it's a bunch of 50-year-olds and 47-year-olds and just crusty near-death things. You've got youth on your side, Sean. Enjoy it. I'm 49. Okay. So.
I appreciate the kindness of that statement. But yeah, it's wild how I feel like in a lot of ways, music seems to keep people young. Like I hope so. I saw Bill and Sebastian in the zoo a couple years ago.
I would like to go to that show. I have all the records.
It was a really, really good show.
I love that stuff. Yeah,
and what was so astonishing about it was Stuart, the leader of the band, who I believe is in his 50s now.
Sure, of course, yeah.
But he spent the entire time, the entire hour and a half, running back and forth on the stage like he was, 20 years old. I cannot fathom now even being able to do something like that.
I hope it keeps you young. I haven't seen the Stones. For me, the Rolling Stones were something that you were forced to listen to on the radio when you were a kid, or they were something that your uncles liked because they maybe got to see it when they were a kid.
Yeah.
But I had my Stones moment where I really started to tune into what was beautiful about it now. And, all that stuff, even the hits, I love it. And I wanted to go see it. And, you want to go see a Mick Jagger at 79 years old kicking ass because it's neat. And they, I know that Keith Richards is a big piece of beef jerky up there, with, knotted knuckles and shit, but that's why you love it, And I know that I don't know what the word is. It's like underneath the stage, someone's doing the oohs and the ahs and maybe keeping the rhythm or something.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. These guys are still doing it,
I always feel like the people who give musicians shit for lip syncing when they're doing full elaborate dances. It's just they're working so hard to try to do two separate things.
For the guy to go back and forth on the stage at the Bell and Sebastian, listen, if if you had a great time, that's your memory. That's awesome. As I mature in my late 40s. We went and saw Jack White at the Moda Center at the start of the summer.
Yeah.
And all my little, stupid little warnings are going up like, oh, it's a big show. It's at the Moda Center. It's this big.
Yeah.
Man, that guy came out and kicked ass. It was really
Really?
impressive. And here's the thing. I own the records. I'm a White Stripes fan. I get to work for Jack every now and again on some posters and some fun things. But it just gets too big for someone. By the way, I'd rather listen to the records here at the house.
Yeah.
And not have to put pants on and go out into the world. But it was wonderful.
Yeah.
And you felt young and you stood up, and it was, even just with what little I see his promotion, I knew a lot of the new songs because they're hitting you on these commercials and things, and you're picking up these things, even whatever. It was killer. And that's a good thing for a heart and a mind to be like, wow, we can go, whatever your flavor is. And I want to see this band go and enjoy that. Maybe a month ago, Pavement came through. And, I got a big Pavement section somewhere here. But I had seen it back in the day, and I saw the starts and the stops and the creepiness and the inside jokes and all that shit. And by the way, when I see Stephen Malcolmus around town or on a plane, he lives here, I lose my shit because I'm a fan all the way back.
Yeah.
But I didn't need to go see it at Edgefield. It was okay. I could sit here and listen to the records. By the way, friends were sending me, incredible high definition 10 million K video downloads of them playing 2 nights before. You could just sit and watch it on your, while I'm sitting there working on some document. Right?
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't need to go see that. I did see it back in the day, but there are some things I'm trying to play catch up on, But, you're right. Yeah. Music still is something that is magical to me. How you make it, how you play it, how you perform it, how you make the art for it.
Yeah.
And yesterday I got a really cool call to work for Chris Stapleton. And I can't really go into the full expanse of that, but he's a big honkin' country star. But it's the idea that that makes me feel like, oh, I gotta fight. I got a little bit of fight in me because, so much of this is, and I know I probably told this ahead of time, was like, I'm surprised when a Sean Schumacher comes and asks me to be on this podcast.
That's so flattering.
Well, because
I am a dingus.
Well, by the way, this is a stupid podcast at that. I just been waiting to say it. No, because I heard someone else say it, so then I get to have fun with that. Okay. The idea that I keep waiting to be, in town here, I'm really careful with what I go do publicly and stuff because I did a lot of it already and it was a long time ago. I don't need to do any more shows here or, we do pop-ups because we're just making money, whatever. But I keep waiting for this sort of to be kind of done.
Yeah.
Because it's been improbable, we'll say, that it was as big as it felt to me for so many different times. So, when you get a call from someone that you look up to, like a Chris Stapleton, I'm not a big country music fan by any stretch, but I've learned to love his craft and his talent. And he is a big goddamn act in that world, and the Nashvilles and the things and the stuff. But yet his record will be on the wall at Jackpot Records. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He still makes it some nerd like me. It's not just the Margot Prices and the Jason Isbells and these Sturgill, these guys who, are the cool country that's happening right now.
Yeah.
He still fits in that thing, but he is one of the biggest things on the biggest stage, winning all the Grammys and stuff. So when, that spirit of getting that call was like, oh man, maybe I got another lease on this whole damn thing because there's going to be, I get to do this pretty big thing for him. And that means people still think I can pull. Because, here's the thing. I've been kind of okay with if all that razzmatazz goes away, I built a whole arsenal of graphics I can make $1 on, and sell to stores and things and stuff and help benefits, and do things. And that has nothing to do with clients calling me.
No.
Right? When you said the Skillshare thing, it's like, I love those because I get to share.
Yeah.
I get to share. And I make a paycheck and stuff, but it means a lot to me to demystify this stuff because for when I was getting going in the mid 90s or early 90s, you were afraid that you didn't have the good looks, you didn't have the cool degree, you didn't have the right chops. And it turns out that's all kind of bullshit. Turns out.
Absolutely.
Thank God, because you can see me up in the real flesh here, Sean, and it's not pretty. I apologize. I already signed the contract on that one. Sorry. But I love to be able to tell a kid, hey, with good craft in your Adobe Illustrator and good craft in your email and being a good person, you can have a job and make a living and pay your rent.
Especially that last one. I feel like that matters more than anything else.
I know I got a big mouth, and I know I say some funny little things, and we've already had to, there's everybody listening. There's a thing that he does here that if I say something stupid, he's got a code, or we won't get into it for security reasons. But he's already done it 7 times, and we've only been in this thing for 5 minutes. But hopefully, what people would know of me here in town, which means a lot to me, that I was nice to them, or I was accommodating, or I went the extra mile, or I didn't. I don't know. I was nice when they came up to me at Target. We love going to Target, by the way. We go out there and just
it's a wonderful place.
Buy Q-tips and shit. It's great. And I'll every now and again I get a kid. Here's something weird: is every time I go to the airport, every time I get 1 or 2 people coming up and saying, "Hey, I'm a fan," or whatever. So I know to bring field notes and stickers and shit with me to just basically kind of be like, "Hey, here's a little goodie for you, and thank you, but I gotta go, I gotta run or whatever," And that's a privilege, and that happens, and to go back to my love for this band Pavement. I know the guy lives here, but I see him at, around town, and I don't really, accost him. I don't really go up and just, rake him over. But
it's hard to start a conversation with a hero of yours while they're buying like cat food or something.
But I have, and at least with that guy, he was really gracious to me.
Yeah.
So every time some kid does make that leap, I just really try to be, I hope that people would say, yeah, he's a nice guy.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone who has met you is going to say that.
Well, I hope so.
You are so genuine.
Well, thanks.
You've done a lot of things for different bands, like heroes over the years. Like, do you have one that you kind of remember as being like your first?
Well, yeah. If we were just to go and pinpoint like for music per se, it would have been just Friends. And it was a band called The Dopes where I was able to make a full CD. And really what that means is, maybe the record before that, another friend did it. And the record before that, like it was just like an insert onto like a burned CD or something. Yeah. When I got to do it, they actually went, and they had like the spine and the things you could pick colored pieces of plastic and all this neat kind of stuff.
Oh, full on.
So,
wow.
That was in 98 and I was in art school and I really went nuts because it was like, I don't care if they're going to make 200 of these things. They're my friends. They're in a band, and it deserves the graphic design. Like maybe what we should do is I should get a link to that and show you that, and then we can have some fun with that because you can see me being a weird little illustrator. Because at that time I was only a couple years away from like not having a computer, so I would have to draw and draw and draw and draw. Now the last 7 days here, I got to do a big Tenacious D poster.
Oh, shit.
And it was all illustration. And what's fun about that is that's still inside me, but it wasn't something it was due to limitations.
Yeah.
It was due to, I didn't have a computer. So doing that thing from your friends, I've never really lost that buzz because when you get to work for Chris Stapleton, there's a neat thing that comes with it. It's called a paycheck. And you get these, they're flat and you play with them and you look at them and they smell good. It's amazing.
Sometimes they're as big as you are.
Holy
and you can,
shit.
Hold it up in front of the camera.
I just love the fact that if you're the Dopes or you're Chris Stapleton, chances are you're not going to make 25 records like Elton John did.
Yeah.
You might make, if you're really lucky, 10.
Yeah.
But the average is a couple. And then you end up owing money to a record. Now, that's just even in the big leagues. But if you're just your friends, graphic design absolutely applies there.
Yeah.
And if there's no money, who gives a shit? The funny part about that is I remember using that record to get me other jobs that might have paid a little bit. So, see, this is the sneak attack of like when you don't know any better.
Yeah.
And it was just a hobby. And you didn't either unabashed or naive and you just show it to the world. It's like people would see it and then if they like the design, they don't know that it was for basically nothing.
Yeah.
The game of perception's weird. Oh, it looks pretty good. It must have been this big thing.
Yeah.
No, it's a bunch of scrubs called the Dopes. That's what graphic does. It can elevate something that wasn't elevated yet.
Exactly.
And I love that. There's no pay. There's the paycheck you get from that when you don't get paid is that you can sleep at night and you used your creative efforts to help make something cooler. So, I love that element of rock and roll. And I'm not, when I get to work for the big or the little or the medium or the whatever, it doesn't matter. It still has my heart. It still has my heart because I remember when there was no money. And turns out that's the case an awful lot still. But who gives a shit? The idea that someone would say no to that is creepier to me than someone who would say and be able to understand the beauty of like, wow, how much time did we throw away in a week? Well, it's a lot. What if I made room in that time to make cool things for friends and things and stuff? Well, fuck, I've been doing that for years because all I knew before there was ever a paycheck was that's all it was. I used a big mountain of that stuff to get myself into art school. I used a big mountain of that stuff to get myself hired around Portland here. And that's been a lot of years. I used a mountain of that stuff to get myself funded for certain things. I mean, I get to go to these Adobe conferences and shit. And what no one understands is the domino effect of just this being fun and showing that has built into this thing now where it's like, you know, a guy pulled me aside. He was like, you know, you didn't really even show any client work in your last talk. And it was like, I didn't even think about it. You know, I was like, shit, I guess, isn't that cool? You know, high five, man, because what if all you have is, you know, bigger, biggest, bigathon? Fuck, let's show the smallest, shittiest thing because if it looks as good as the big stuff, someone's got some answering to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's fun. That's fun to me. That fuckery is fun to me. Oh, am I allowed to say bad words?
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean.
Yeah, the censors are going to be so angry.
Make me sound smart, Sean, please. Thank you.
I can arrange for that. I have to make myself sound dumber. Usually.
By the way, we're going to do this in one take. There's no editing allowed. All right? All right.
That would certainly save me a lot of time. You were doing design stuff before you got into design school. Like, what were you doing back then?
Yeah, I was on a podcast, I guess maybe last week, where I forget about like my first job in design, because my first job in design was really at a snowboarding magazine where I was getting like a salary and it was competitive and I could start to pay back school loans and things and stuff. That's where it really started for me. That was in the year 2000. But no, about 5 years before that, I worked at a nickel ads, and you know,
like one of those like publications with just classified ads
in Bend, Oregon. So, you know, the 95% of the thing is like big ranchers called Tex or whatever coming in, and you know, Tex Rutherford, you know, whatever, these big cowboys and shit.
I need to sell my used mattress.
Well, I mean, things to hold horses, things to carry hay, big trailers, big cowboy Cadillac trucks and shit. Okay, so what that teaches you is you have to go out, and I wasn't a rancher, but I had to get, you know, up to their level, down to their level, whatever you want to call it, and be accommodating and be a good citizen. So, you know, these are good old boys sometimes, and you know, they're making comments that maybe don't jive with the way, but hey, and I'm still doing my job to help them sell their little thing. But what it taught me was like graphic design can be applied to even the most hard scrabble, you know, piece of hardtack, Central Oregon, big tough rancher guy, and it was my job to make them sell that thing. And I forget about that gig because it was one of these deals where like I saw a little thing in the paper. So to answer your question, I was already, you know, out of high school. I was 17. I went into a tiny little 2-year program in Northwestern Michigan Community College, right in Traverse City, Michigan. That was a gift from my parents to do 2 years, 17 and 19, and get my associate's degree out of the way, right? It was graphic design. I learned how to turn the machines on, how to make things, how to paint, draw, think, spatial, whatever, awareness. I mean, how to print stuff out of a toner printer. That was a new thing at that time.
Yeah.
In 91, 92, 93. I already had this sort of like mini education, but I didn't have the tools. Yeah. So what I was doing was I was utilizing in 93, 4, 5, 6, how to be an artist or maybe an illustrator or whatever, and just fumble around and learn that stuff and make a tiny little living. When I got my computer after my first summer in Alaska in 96, it exploded for me because then I had the machine and there was no more, well, I don't have the tool bullshit anymore. Now it was like I have the tool, I have the time. I'm not going out and either chasing girls or getting hammered or whatever the things that were happening in our little community of, you know, dipshits around Bend, Oregon. I had a roof over my head and my room, and I was getting down to business because I knew this is what I wanted to do with my little life. You know, I wanted to be, I'd already studied it. So to answer that, it's like when I went in to get this job, I didn't have the computer in 95. but I was sneaking into the community college there using a friend's account, and I would roll up there with my sketches and we'll just say field notes. We'll go up there with my sketchbook, and I would have minimal time, a couple hours on his sort of account to use PageMaker and a little bit of Macromedia Freehand, and maybe these budding the first little bits of Photoshop. I knew how to use it from my school, but now it was like when I was up in Alaska saving for my computer, I would go and ride my bike across. See, we would get off the train. I worked on a sightseeing train. We'd get off the train really late, 10 o'clock at night. Everyone would go right to the bars, fight, screw, drink, fuck, everything, get in trouble, whatever, what you do in Alaska.
Yeah, anything to keep away the cold.
Well, this is in the summer, but still, I would pedal my little ass across town to this all-night Kinko's, and I would swipe my credit card, and then from midnight to 4 a.m, I'd pay for 4 hours, and I would sit and design on a machine that had everything I needed. So, making T-shirts for the crewmates, or making whatever design I had in my head that I had penciled out quite literally. Not people are using the words literally the wrong way.
Yeah. To the point I think even the dictionary is now.
So fucked up. It pisses me. I mean, maybe take that out. But, how people are using it wrong.
Yeah, the Merriam-Webster people are going to be really angry with this show.
Yeah. Well, on the backs of cherry pie canisters and stuff, because it had this nice toothy quality, and I would, they would just throw it away, and I would keep the square, and I would make postcards and shit out of it. It was like chipboard, right?
Yeah.
And I would have my idea ready to go, and then I would get to the Kinko's, and that taught you how to be quick, because you don't want to spend more time, dicking around. This is right as the internet is sort of starting, so you're starting to see like design annuals, which were already a thing. You can go on someone's, sort of rudimentary website and see their stuff. It was just this whirlwind of awesome, and I really tapped into that. And then I got my computer, and then I didn't have to get those jobs anymore. I had that job for a while where we could use their computer, to make my own things. Once my job was done there, I would go and, work late on stuff, right? Because, they would let me lock up and split. A year later, I had my own machine. A year after that, I went back to school. I paid all that money to go to Minneapolis. 2 years after that, in 2000, I went and got my first job, right? So, I love to share that with a youngster, because even if you don't have a computer or the tool, or what, like a phone will allow you to do a lot of stuff right now, just your phone alone. I didn't have any of that. That doesn't stop the process, so what, so you go swipe a credit card and use a couple hours. It taught me to get quick, taught me to be efficient, taught me to have, be good with my file storage, because it was on these like zip drives and shit, zip disks and stuff. You're old enough to remember those. Right?
Oh, absolutely. So, I owned a zip drive.
Yeah. It's as a little funny side note, I have a hard time getting rid of all those things. Yeah. Even though like all the DVDs I had backed up, that's just on a series of hard drives sitting behind you. That's all pretty well refined and backed up and on clouds and things and stuff. But those early artifacts that I saved money for and felt so lucky to get a $10,000 computer in 1996. I worked all summer and made $10,000. I spent all of it on my computer when I got back home.
Wow.
$4 or $5 grand for this Mac clone thing called the Power Computing.
Yes, I remember those.
Remember?
Yeah.
Another grand for a scanner, another grand for a monitor, another grand for a printers. Now we're at $9,500, and I remember this. Yeah. I spent my entire summer up there washing dishes. And in Bend, Oregon, it was like this consultant guy. There wasn't a Mac store to go to. There wasn't a Power Computing store to go to, that one of these clone things. It was a consultant guy that ordered it from somewhere. Yeah. And I remember I ordered it, and it was going to take a week or whatever. And every night I couldn't sleep, because I knew what this thing was going to be. It was like, this is where I get to start and be one-to-one with these assholes who are underperforming, have all the tools in the world, and I'm going to be able to be right neck and neck with them. Yeah. And I remember when he showed up, and he had some 4-door, Volkswagen Rabbit or something, and he just pulls up, and on the back seat is my computer. Like no foam, no boxes, no protective doodad. You know what I mean? Like,
not even not buckled in or anything.
Just sitting like in a shitty angle, and all I could think was like, what if that thing hit a bump on the way over here, and the little hard drive disconnected from the RAM, from the whatever CPU, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I spent my entire summer, and that night, I remember turning it on for the first time, and that's where it took off for me. Because there was no more poo-pooing this idea of like, well, I can only draw. Yeah. And I can only go to a Kinko's. And ever since, I've had the full capacity to realize whatever goofy little thing inside my head. And today I worked all day because the stuff I wasn't allowed to work on this last week, today's my day to do it, and tomorrow's my day to do it. And I still can't get enough of that, because not only is it tapping into this, like, I want to get this thing off my field notes into the machine and then tuned up. It can make you a buck too.
Yeah.
Which is a really weird elixir.
Yeah.
There were a lot of years there where there was no eyeballs on me, and it was only me making my stuff for myself, and that's still okay. So to someone listening who is freaking out about how to get a job, and I don't like the grind word's always kind of weird to me, but it's like, no.
Yeah, because it really implies that you're grinding yourself into dust, which is maybe not the best
It's like
metaphor.
just sort of keep this stuff really positive and be thankful that it was a privilege to sit and be creative all day. And spend my time and my life that way, and my life force that way. And yes, maybe make a buck, maybe not, maybe get faster on something. That's still really interesting to me, that like reminding yourself how to remind yourself how to learn. You forget because you get into your own patterns of riff, raff, and that makes you a buck. You just stick with that. But no, today I stopped myself and went into the, in essence, online, and looked at the new things in Illustrator and learned a couple new tricks. I might forget them, but if I have that little note that reminds me to go and put that into my arsenal, that's still really interesting to me. The idea that I can get better, not only in Illustrator, but in life too. And I know we were discussing some of that. So
it's like keeping learning, keeping fresh. Like, I think that's like something that you have to do in this field. Like, you cannot just stop and say, I don't want to look at anything new.
You're around all this really cool energy all the time. Seeing young people figure it out or fall on their face, that's your job to be coach and help them figure it out. That's pretty cool. I mean, I know, and I'll just say it, thank you for doing that. It's not the easiest thing in the world, and I know there's big, giant paychecks the size of this room, and it must be nice if I can elevate myself there. But I always have a soft spot for Kate Bingham and Bert, always. And because, that some kid gets to go learn from that. That's pretty cool. Because I had a couple ones that were a little phoning it in, or a little too big for their britches. We don't need to get the names and and shit. But yeah.
But those folks that are not super supportive,
they weren't fun. They just weren't fun. Kate is fun. If I took one of your classes, man, we'd have a lot of fun.
I think so.
I think we could have a lot of fun. Just Aaron Draplin sitting there, and got in trouble. Aaron Draplin got in trouble again. And Mr. Schumacher, I'm sorry that I, whatever.
Yeah, I walk in my construction vest and hard hat and start doing my whole spiel.
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't even know what you asked me, but it's like, like I this whole little funny journey from having nothing with it to having a whole bunch of something with it. I would hope that people know that I still love to spend a Saturday making the 7 things that I didn't have the time to make because I was, messing around with Tenacious D. And by the way, that's pretty fun to mess around with that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to if I had the chance.
That's the part that I have to really stop myself and be really present in that moment of like, you're not allowed to poo-poo this. Yeah. You are busy as hell, but it's on Tenacious D, and they're animals. And you got to be thankful for that. So I'm pretty good at that, at stop myself. Whenever I feel a little, I'm tired or whatever, I'll just stop, take a look and take stock of the moment and say, man, this is pretty cool.
Like refill your cup of joy with
it really,
the cool things you're doing.
When I've been in a lucky position to have people listen to my bullshit. And I get a lot of questions, very well-meaning, of like, hey, what happens when you get creative block, And I have all these little funny bits I do about it. But there's just ways of like, of mining the good moments of the weirdness of creativity.
Yeah.
And if you have a little glimmer or a little blip of something and you don't know where that came from, stop yourself and teach yourself how to capture it. Might be on your phone, might be in a voice memo, might be in a sketch in your Field Notes brand Field Notes, $9.95 over at the fieldnotesbrand.com. Whatever it's going to be, however you can capture that. That's something I still have to remind myself. We're going so fast. So like this morning, I open up my Field Notes and I've got 5 sketches to go and attack or whatever it was. And before I know it, I'll spend a full day I'll get through these things. Like, that's still me. It's still my hobby. Monday, it might be back on the job for a bunch of hard Scrabble shit, like, Tenacious D, or something that is serious. Like, we just did a logo job for a software company, a game software. Game code. What do they call them? People that design video games.
Oh, like game developers.
Sorry, game developers. We did a logo for that. And I was really on the job. And you know what the cool part is? We were done a month early.
Wow.
Because somewhere along the way, they were like, you know what? We have these presentations already coming up. How are we looking? And it was like, we were just cooking. So what I'm getting at is, if that was the scariest thing I was working on, there's not a lot of creative block to go find there.
Yeah.
It's awesome, and awesome, and the stuff that like here's the stuff that I do a bad job with sometimes, like pursuing payment.
Hey, same here.
I know that it's like a little weird thing in the bank, but I have a hard time with like filling out paperwork to get into someone's vendor thing or whatever, and it'll just sit, that email will just sit and sit and sit. So like, I have a job that I did, I don't know, at the end of August, and it's still sitting there. Well, it's not a giant paycheck, but the idea is I'll just have to go and dig in, call someone at their company and say, hey, where do I start? They're going to send me all this bullshit. That's the thing that I have a hard time with, because in that time I could have made other things. Yeah. I could have been, sharing. I could have been kind of entertaining on my Instagram, or making fun of myself, or making fun of something cool, or helping prop something up. No, I was doing like clerical schmerical, just trying to track something down, And
yeah.
Damn. I can see it coming, and then I'll avoid it. And that's maybe not, I can get better in that department, I suppose.
But it feels like it's so antithetical to the creative work. Like like I spent all this month trying to get paperwork filed with the HR department at school. And it's so...
There's a reason for it.
Crushing.
There's a reason for it. And you have to do your job and be a part of that, and get into there and be a good citizen. But when I see what's coming, I'll avoid it, because I just know it's going to be an afternoon of trying to track down some AP person. Now, here's one of the reasons. The guys that I worked with in these game developer guys, when they got their file, like, it was just like ting into my account, whatever they paid me with. Like, they're on top of shit.
That's remarkable.
I've
never heard of that before.
Well, I mean, the bigger the stuff you work for, the more 30, 60, 90 days things become. And that's just part and parcel when you work in the big leagues. Here's the deal. These guys have worked in the big leagues for years. They took stock and they jumped out and they started their own thing. And that's kind of what I did, or whatever you want to call it. So I have a weird little spot in me to always be sympathetic to that and excited to help out with that, because, that's like this neat reinvention of what they do. And let's just say that they make a healthier, better version of them being able to do what they do. They already are. They already have things concepted up, and they're already cooking. They just needed a nice little exclamation point at the end of, on their website. So, here we are designing this thing for these guys. I wish I could show you, because it was really cool, but it has to work at like 10 by 10 pixels on Discord,
Jesus.
Twitch, Smizzle Smazzle, Dongle Dingle, Bingo Blangle, Fungo Fungo, all these new things, right?
All the things that are coming to replace Twitter.
And then, of course, on Twitter. And then, of course, on the things I know, Instagrams, or on a water bottle or your laptop. So that was really fun to get them, like, make sure that we had this sort of granular stuff covered, and then work our way all the way back up to the real fun shit, like a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, and that's a service that I provide to... the big, when someone comes to me, and those are big jobs to me. Now, it might be $1,000, or it might be considerably more than that, but I love being able to facilitate that for someone and make their lives easier. The idea is this: I gave them that shit on a Friday or something. By Monday, they would have been cooking.
Yeah.
I'll bet you right now, these guys are so on top of shit. If you went and looked at their little world, and they turn the on switch on, and they're on Twitch and things and stuff, we have their color figured out, and we know what their typeface was. They're probably already populating it right now.
Almost certainly. Game developers have to move fast.
You're right. And I really found that exciting, because, nothing hurts more than getting a big paycheck and a big job and a big everything, and then it all getting caught into the rigmarole of like red tape.
Yeah.
And like, we're in a holding pattern. And it's just... Now the ego comes into play. Like, this thing that I made for you guys that I thought was really successful is never even going to see the light of day. Well, hey, baby, you were paid. What do you care? It's really empty sometimes,
And that's the ad agency last minute kill.
It's tough,
joy
man.
Zone.
It's real tough. So I'm really careful with those jobs that I accept, because it's not even about the money. It's about, that is my November. So me, teasing you with this Chris Stapleton shit, it's going to be a big part of my December. But I just love the guy, and I love what he stands for. I love his craft. I love his music, and I will give my time for that. And by the way, they'll reward me too with a nice paycheck, because these guys do very well. But in the same respect, what you saw me working on today, and I can't talk about it, but there's really no money involved there. And I don't really care about that. People are afraid to ask me to work on stuff because they think I only work on big, and whatever. And it's like, no, I take care of my mom. Can you guys all, when a band comes in here and says, well, we don't know what we should pay for this. And I go, well, listen, Chainsaw over here, he works as a dishwasher, and then he's the drummer. He doesn't have any money to pay. And then 2-Bit over here, look at this, fuck that guy. And then, Skriz Skraz over here, you can pay anything. But you, Mr. So-and-so, you work at Nike. That means you're paying $1,000 for me to make your, I know how to do a sliding scale and be like, hey, what should this cost? So, this person who, if I'm like, listen, how many people are in the group? Oh, I think it's 6 of us. How about $100 for each person? That's $600. Hey, that goes to my mom to take care of my mom, whatever that woman needs. Usually it's like Budweiser. I'm just kidding. No, she's job number one. That's a couple car payments for her.
Yeah.
And I'll just say right on, while we're on the record, Mom, if you so much as just one infraction, I'll cut you from the whole goddamn thing. And that's legal. If you're listening, Mom, you stray. If you slip up, I'm talking 1 pica, and that's some design shit. You 1/2 a pica, and you're done. Okay, next question, Sean.
Okay, so you're transitioning out of the nickel publication game. You're going to design school. How did you get into the snowboarding magazine? What's the change there?
Yeah, well, I will say, without discounting 10 years of my life, there was a bit of a step back. And what that means is, when I was a kid in the mid-'90s, I got to go up to Mount Hood. And that summer up at camp in 1995, I was a hospital driver because I didn't drink, So when I was doing that gig, I met a bunch of these animals that were, coming through for the summer themselves. And they had a magazine and they had jobs in the industry and all this cool stuff. So that was a shiny object for me because I had just come off of just being a snowboarder and skateboarder around Bend, Oregon, and hopeful and wanting to make graphics and wanting to make things and wanting to make stuff. But you get to a point where you're like, this was before I went to school.
Yeah.
I got to see some of that stuff in Portland, coming up from Bend, and see these cool jobs. But the takeaway was, shit, I don't have a degree. Shit, this guy is really on top of his game. But, he already had 3 or 4 years at so-and-so company. Oh, shit. Turns out you could just put an application in and maybe even just get the gig.
Yeah.
But I didn't, the perception is, I don't have that piece of paper. So I went back to school thinking, if I got that thing, then I'm accredited, or I have all my stuff, my ducks in a row. I didn't necessarily need it, but what a privilege it was to go. So anyone listening, if you're going to school and you want to go to school, go.
And I think that's the thing about it, is it's like design is not really an academic field in the traditional sense. Like there's not like God help us if there ever becomes a PhD in design, really.
Well, there probably is somewhere, some fucking Yale bullshit, whatever. You guys are so fun. You guys are fun.
But that's the thing, is like, I think we really are believers that what you're coming to school for is to help to build your sense of what this field is through your classwork, but also through community.
Yeah, you guys make it, that's a really savory thing about what you guys do, that no one's afraid to use this tool already in their lives. But when you get that job at Nike or whatever the hell, you got to buckle down and do the job. To meet all these animals that summer, then 5 years later, I get out of school and I'm getting ready to get out of school. And I got this sort of tease to be like, hey, come work at a snowboarding magazine. Now, when I left Bend in 1998, I left behind this world of like snowboarding, people saying the word dude, these pursuits of youth, like kind of Peter Pan, like, oh, I don't care how old I am. I got my pass for the mountain, and it was really fun and healthy, and it was fun to go be a snowboarder. But I was so excited to go get myself into like maybe a little bit of the big leagues of graphic design academics, we'll just say, at this cool school in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. Like I just wanted to
great school.
I just wanted to see what it was like if I had what it took.
Yeah.
And because you don't know any better, when I went in there, I got a big scholarship, and that tells you something. And then it's like, okay, now it's time to like really buckle down.
Yeah.
I had a fucking blast. But my next trajectory was not back into snowboarding. It was to go work in an agency. But I went and saw that shit up close.
Yeah.
And there were dudes with tucked in shirts and sitting around, bullshitting about the client did this, the client did that.
Yeah.
And it kind of scared me away,
Yeah.
So my buddies that I met from this summer up at camp 5 years before, they dangled a job in Southern California. And I went down there to be an art director for Snowboarder magazine, which is just the art person out of 6 or 7 of us making the magazine.
Southern California is not where I would think that a snowboarding magazine should be situated.
Well, it's all the surf. It's all the entrails of the surf world
that
and
makes
the
sense.
skateboarding world. But it was pretty rough for me because I was coming from gritty-ass Minneapolis where it was like okay to be a big water buffalo, okay to, just a funny little side note. I was just telling this story like the first time. Like today I'm listening to the Style Council, which I don't know if you're ever a fan of Paul Weller or a fan of The Jam, the band The Jam back in the day. But anyway, today is a Paul Weller day for me, right? I'm doing all the Paul Weller stuff. I'm doing all the Style Council shit. I'm doing all the Jam. Okay. Well, when I went to the UK years ago, people are dressed to the fucking nines. Have you been to London?
No.
Oh, you got to go because people really dress. And I'm standing there like I should be like getting hay off the back of a fucking truck, with a Carhartt jacket and a pair of blue jeans and maybe some tennis shoes or something. You know what I mean? These people.
That's a Portland tuxedo.
Well, they're sure. These guys are dressed to the fucking nines, and they're just, I don't know, they're in rock bands, they're going to work, they're going to things. And by the way, these Paul Weller types, he's a fucking style icon over in the UK. So, when I was over there, I was like looking these things up and it just a couple days ago, it just like, damn man, like what pressure to have to worry about that stuff. Like I haven't, I joke about being pantless and stuff, but I had an entire career where there was never anyone measuring that stuff. Yeah. When I went to that snowboarding magazine, it's just some dipshit in like surf trunks and a t-shirt that says something wearing flip-flops on the fucking beach. It was really chill. And it was instant privilege of like, this exists. I didn't see that when I was seeing these guys getting jobs at Target and stuff in Minneapolis or going to these big agencies where you have to kind of up your game to go be a part of this thing.
Yeah.
It freaked me out. Well, in some respects, I took a step back just because I wasn't interested in that world anymore. I did it as a kid. The language was just like, kind of like, oh man, like I'm not concerned with that anymore. And not to mention, I wasn't up on the hill anymore. But there were opportunities that started to come out of it. I worked for the snowboarding magazine. I got up to Portland. I worked for a place called Cinco. I worked on Nixon watches and cool, really high-end action sports shits, Gravis shoes and like this really Helly Hansons and neat parts of Nike and Adidas. Okay. Nice stuff. And watched that explode around me, but only did that for a couple years. And then from 2004 to about 2012, I worked out of this basement here and worked on snowboarding brands. So I was with my friends, but it was a bit of a, it's hard to look at it now because I feel bad that I wasn't going and sharing the hill with them anymore. You go 10 years before that, 95, 97, 94, 92, man, that's all I had was be a snowboarder, scumbag, skateboarder or whatever. My identity had sort of changed, and it's okay. For me, it was going up a different kind of food chain to like go and be in an office in a thing and work on these other projects. So in 2012, I kind of just jumped ship from all of it because in some respects, I knew there was another world out there that could hire me. I had definitely proven myself inside the snowboarding world, and I was making pretty good money. I had a number of retainer clients and, was able to do like really cool snowboard graphics for all my favorite companies I grew up with. But also in a weird little way, I knew that I had to get out of the way because, if I'm almost 50 now, then I would have been coming up on 40. And I was like, you know what? I don't want some 22-year-old kid who saved his money all summer understanding that the graphic that he's going to buy or she's going to buy or they're going to buy, that some old 40-year-old cynic, in essence, made that for them. Someone who was like cringing at the idea of a bunch of snowboard dipshits staying at my house all summer. And that's what it was. These are my friends, right? But I was kind of done with that stuff.
Yeah, it didn't feel genuine
So
anymore.
I jumped out and, and since then, that's been 10 years now. I've made my own way. And that's when the going on the road started and talking about yourself, which is always weird. But, in that time, I got to work for some of the lefty politicians, and I got to work for bands and brands and things and sizzle pies and shit in town here, super deluxe burgers and stuff in town, all the goodies in town. I got to work for a lot of that stuff. And today, it's like, I still touch those things, but I'm able to make a living with, all these other things that kind of come from that. But just yesterday, I took a job for a wakeboard company. Now, I don't know the first thing about it. I know these dudes are getting towed, behind boats and things and stuff, and yeah, they're hitting jumps and berms and wakes and flippity flaps. I don't know. But if I can apply what I do to that world appropriately, have good spirit, and be different than all the other characters in it, then I'm doing my job.
Yeah.
I'm doing my job. And that just sounds fun to me. You guys, I have to come clean. I'm sorry to all the snowboarders who are listening. I'm sorry. My name's Aaron Draplin. I did a pair of skis a couple of years ago. I'm sorry. They dangled in front of me. It looked fun, and it's fiberglass, and they're smooth, and and I did a pair of skis. You have to understand.
I didn't think that this was going to be such a scandalous show.
I know. Well, when we were kids, what skiing was for us were dudes racing in speed suits, with lots of money, and shitting on us dumb little snowboarders. You know what I mean?
Ned Flanders saying, it feels like I'm wearing nothing at all.
Pretty much. Well, I had a chip in my shoulder. And what you come to learn as you age, it's all the same bunch of fiberglass and bullshit up on that hill. And rich kids and whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And, every time I hear someone say to me, like, I just took my kids to so-and-so mountain, and I say, well, how much were the lift tickets? And they say $180 a day. It's like,
Jesus.
Oh my gosh. Now, listen, someone did that to me when I was a kid too. Like, back in my, whatever. So here's the thing. To go and apply my graphic design to skis or, a longboard and skateboarding, something that might not have been as fashionable when I was a kid. I'm really proud to do that stuff, because it can be applied there. And I always vet myself when I'm with them. I say, hey, you guys, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. Is there someone else there that should be doing this? Because that's what I did in 2012. I just kind of said, who's the next wave of rat kids that should be doing this? It's probably not me anymore. I've done it, and I've done well for a decade. Now I want to try something else, and let me get out of the way. And I did, And there's probably another level of that coming at some point with some of this stuff. Like in the last couple of years, if I'm too busy, I have an arsenal of names and addresses that I send along with a reply and say, okay, maybe I'm not the right guy for this job because I'm just too busy with everything else, but please go check out Matt Dawson from Stay Gray, Ponyboy. Okay, incredible work. Hey, go check out Lauren Dick from Austin. She's awesome this way, that way. Go check out this guy in Cleveland, OK Pants. He's a great illustrator. Okay, right? And I put those out into the world and get out of the way. And then I love when 6 weeks later someone writes me and says, hey, man, you put my name in there, right? Yeah. Oh. And I got a paycheck. It's like, hey, man. This is what we're doing this shit for. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Yeah. One time there was a roast of me and that Lauren Dick, man, she fucking ruined me. Lauren Dickens, she fucking messed me up, man. In Austin, she was good and just ripped me in half, and that's okay. I'm a big fan.
Well, that's how she got the Dick family name.
Yes. So this is. I love putting her name into stuff and saying, hey, because she's got a humor and whatever. Or there's this one gal, Alana Louise, who does lots of fish, lots of cool fish graphics. Or here's one that you probably know, Brett Stenson.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, that's a local ripper. And Brett, if you're listening, you stay off of 67th because I don't need you fucking with my stock price while you're out here. Because, man, that guy's got some moves, man. He's got some moves, Yeah. Anyway. Okay, next question.
So, you're now up here. Like, what then kind of makes you want to step away and start your own company? Because that's a big, scary thing.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly didn't have a game plan. It was a couple people that pulled me aside and said, so you can do this from your home.
Yeah.
And that was really cool to hear because the normal course of ladder climbing and being a good little citizen and getting the job and waiting for the raises and having to go in front of people and be like, this is why I should get a raise. Like, what a fucking creepy process all that stuff is.
Yeah.
Performance evaluations and shit. I was able to shed all of that. And it really was just on me. And I did okay. But those were leapfrog moments where I just wasn't going blindly out into the world. I had offers. Or, hey, would you want to take on this set of, and I would perk up like, whoa, take on what?
Yeah.
Yes, because that's my Thursday and Friday of that week, of course. And, before I knew it, I had an entire week filled with making snowboarding magazines and snowboard graphics and things for this industry that I grew up loving, and being a big part of. But each time I would get a job that, was a couple degrees away from that, I was really excited because it meant that I was able to apply it just past this little world I knew, which was, I was comfortable in that world. I knew all those people from that snowboarding world. But, to make my own thing, it was like, before I knew it, I had my own thing. I had it before. I had it when I went back to school. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
To take those first wobbly steps. By the way, I didn't do that out of Cinco Design, just blindly out into into the blinding, whiteness of some whiteout snowstorm or something. It was like, no, you save your money and then you make a leap.
There's a bridge there.
Yeah, I worked a ton of freelance for a couple years and had enough to buy my home, as in do the down payment and then have 2 or 3 years of rent just covered. Wow. Because what if I bought the house and then that $1,500 a month I was paying, what's that, 12 grand a year or whatever the hell it is,
Something like that.
Okay, well, I've got 30 grand in the bank. That covers a couple years of rent. If nothing happens, at least I have my rent paid.
Yeah.
Well, shit started to happen, So the idea of turning it into my own thing, I had a couple guys tell me like, you could do this from home and you're going to see that, we can see it in you. You have the energy and you stay the latest at this place. At Cinco is where I worked. And you were sometimes, I would stay until 2 a.m. Because not only were we there working on projects, then the principal would go home. I could go crank my amp up and fucking rock out. I couldn't do that in my shitty apartment on Hawthorne. You know what I mean? Like you're in this industrial zone right off of 11th and I think it was Market or something. And I could just play my music or have tons of real estate to do like little screen printing projects with my GoCo printer and use their ping pong table and put 300 cards up. And, there were people that would leave right at 5 o'clock. Yeah. So that energy, someone saw that in me, warned me about it and said, here's how you're going to go do this. Everyone's climbing a ladder to become the best and the best and the biggest and the best. It was a production guy that pulled me aside and he said, your files are tight. You'll work well with people. I don't want you getting some job at Wyden. I said, what does that mean? He said, because they're going to see you and you've got this in you. Don't do it. Draplin, I leave at 5 o'clock every day. I'm a production guy. I go ride my bike. He's some cyclocross guy. This is in 2001. I ride my bike all night and he goes, you know what? I make $5 grand less than you make. And I don't have to be here till midnight, pretending that you're going to climb some ladder. Get out of here. You're never going to own the place. You're never going to, whatever it was. And it was like, oh, okay, it's okay. So I jumped out. And my first year out on my own, becoming my own thing, I tripled my wage. So when I joke about this and I throw these numbers around, like I had a job for $65,000. The reason I say that was the most money I'd ever made in my life. I had a job at an awesome agency making 65 grand. I started to pay off my school loans. I was paying back my car and all these other things. My first year on my own, I broke 200. Now I'm not trying to brag. What I'm saying is, fuck, that was cool. Yeah. Because then within a couple years, that little house I had just bought, I paid off.
Damn.
Yeah.
All
well,
right.
because, the money's coming in and you pay your taxes and all the bumping and grinding with all that shit. But when, I started to have a bank account for the first time in my life, up to that point, isn't that interesting? With these cool jobs and cool things, I never had more than $5 grand in the bank. Never. Because it's not built into that system. No one's going to give you more than exactly what they have to, because that's how someone gets ahead. Yeah. Fine. When I got on my own, it was just up to me. If I want to work until 5 a.m. or get up at 5 a.m, that's on me. Yeah. Because I can make more cash, and I did. So I paid all my shit off. And by the time it was about the year 2009, 10, I was completely debt free. Like I owned my house. I had my school loans paid off. I owned all my car, everything. Yeah. So the ability to go on your own and then hyper refine your life to where you actually like what you're working on, you like the people you're with, and then get ahead. I always talk about this thing on the road where I go, remember back in cool stereos and they had all those little buttons and little knob things, EQ. Like EQ. Okay. To this day, I don't know how to set up an EQ.
No.
But the idea is...
I grew up around audio production.
Right. That's what you're saying, your dad, right? So your dad does, right? And the high-end gain and the high-end whatever. Okay, listen, if you look at like a job in graphic design, sometimes on the little EQ thing, you're going to get paid nothing, but it's going to be real high in the creative department because you're not getting paid anything. You get to do whatever the hell you want. Now, sometimes you get paid a lot of money, whoa, push it all the way up, but the timing is horrible. And that one goes down. Now, what happens when you have time on your hands, you're getting paid more than you thought you should have, you feel creative as shit? That's what it's been like for me these last bunch of years.
Damn.
I mean, these last, 15 years or something. There's not too much to complain about. There's nothing to complain about, right? Right? So I love to share that. And then somewhere in there, I made time to do the skill shares and go on the road and do all the workshops, and no one ever sees this shit, all these rat kids who hit me up and need a little bit of help with their portfolio, finding time for that shit. So listen, if you're waiting for a call on my DM right now, just relax. I get a couple hundred a day. I do make time for all those sorts of things, So, yeah. What was the answer to the question? The answer is, fuck yeah, I did it, and I'm never going back. Okay. Yeah.
What, I mean, like, you've had such great success. Like, what do you feel like are the things that you've stumbled through or that you haven't succeeded at?
Well, when you make money and you don't know what to do with it, like with taxes and stuff, like, for everyone who's listening, if you guys are on the cusp of actually getting ahead with this stuff, you need to go and ask for help and make sure that you're not getting in any sort of trouble, because if you're of age and you owe tax to Uncle Sam, you can get in trouble with that shit. So
yeah, I've been audited. I wouldn't recommend.
Oh,
it.
really?
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
See, yeah.
Bad time.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just whatever. There were years that I let shit slide, and nothing too nefarious, but it's just I didn't know any better, or I didn't even. I got a call from the city of Portland, and the woman was like, "What's the Draplin Design Company?" And I said, "Well, I'm in my backyard. I work on things." And she was like, "You don't have a business license." I didn't even know you had to have a business license. Well, it turns out when you get a business license, you have to pay tax, blah, 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 whatever it was. And it was like, no, what else do I need to know? When we went down the line, it's like, what else do I need to have? Do I need to have a something, you have to pay the dog catcher, some kind of sticker you put on the, I have a dog, Gary, my little wiener. I didn't even know, what I'm getting at. It's like, I didn't know. No one ever told me. So you learn. So, I think also, one of the big things, and it's hard to talk about, but it's a sedentary lifestyle.
Yeah.
And sitting on my ass working all day and getting ahead. It's here's some fun little bit of math for you, but you put on 3 pounds a year for 30 fucking years, you can do the math. What if you put on I can put on 4 pounds in a weekend, maybe, right? Or something.
Yeah.
What if you put on 5 pounds a year for the last 25 years? That's you, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like suddenly, you're this giant fucking beast. Well, whatever you want to call it. I'm getting help in that department. Yeah, I've been saying this shit for years, but it's non-negotiable. The other way's not working.
Yeah.
And as you get older, so I have to move, and we have to really monitor things. And on the weekend we go lose our shit a little bit and go get, funny little restaurants or whatever. But otherwise, we're really watching things, and that's something I've.
You gotta move. You may not think you need it now, but you do need it.
I do little things around here, but it's just not enough. And that's like taking out the recycling and doing stuff. But, this last summer, I walked every other day, go every 3 days a week to a trainer. And I lost, about 7 DDC books. So that's 28 pounds or 30 pounds.
That's
or whatever
fantastic.
it was. They're 4 pounds a book. But I lost that, and shit, what happens if I do it again? And that's what we're going to do this winter. So, and that takes buckling down. So when people say, well, what kind of mistakes did you make? And it was like, well, I screwed up on my taxes a couple times, but I got my ass out of that and figured it out. A big mistake is I paid way too much for a cool thing downtown for too long. Right.
Yeah.
And I was able to get out of there, build my shop back here to my spec. And it turns out I own it.
Yeah, and you don't have to commute anymore.
My commute is 10 steps, Schumacher. It's nice. And it's so wonderful back here. So, mistakes would maybe be like getting in bed with some clients that maybe it's not even a mistake. That it was just a big shiny paycheck.
Yeah, but it leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
And then you get your heart broken. But that's not you. You didn't go into it. You made the mistake was, well, they turned out to be shitty people.
Yeah.
Is that my fault? Well, some of those things happen, but you have to learn from that stuff, But, when I look back, it's like, this is going to sound horrible, but, we're in this culture where people love to share war stories of and then I was in the heavy drinking phase of my life. And it's like, I'm not really qualified to weigh in on that because I don't know what that's like. And I'm not going to judge someone or shit on them or something. But I didn't really have the opportunity to do that or really lose my shit. Now, if someone's struggling with that stuff, hey, you got to get a little bit of help if that's your deal. Hey, if you don't care about it, then go for it. Do what you got to do. But I didn't really have that opportunity to just screw shit up. Because if I did, I wouldn't be able to get a car.
Yeah.
If I did, I wouldn't be able to go to school. If I did, I wouldn't have got a computer. You know what I mean? Like, we'd be up in Alaska all summer long, and people are getting in trouble, and they're getting in fights, or they're doing things they shouldn't have done, and then they're having to pay for it while they're in Alaska. And it's like, that's not what you came here to have a fun summer, but you're in the red now.
Yeah.
You're in the red. Like, you're having to dig yourself out of a hole. You still have to work all summer. Like, every summer I went up there, it was like all positive. I gave 5 months of my life to get a computer. I gave 5 months of my life to pay for the first bunch of school. I gave 5 months of my life one summer so I could just pay off some credit cards and then get a little bit more ahead. And I would see that, and I didn't have that opportunity to screw up. Yeah. So, I probably make mistakes every day, but those are the glaring ones. I remember I wasn't allowed to screw up too bad. Maybe that's coming, where I just start drinking and fighting and taking, saying bad things and jaywalking and what else, not saving my documents and just leaving shit on, leaving on shit on desktops, like bad desktop behavior, just leaving shit laying around, bad file naming, what else?
Sending things to press with broken links.
When I sent my book in 2015, my editor, John Gall, I remember him, it was a hard drive, and he's like, Draplin, when I opened up the InDesign file, all the links were so beautifully done. I was like, hey, baby, how many times in your life do you get to make a fucking book? I spent a whole summer, I took it very seriously.
You want it to be perfect. I mean, it's got your name right there on the cover.
It wasn't supposed to happen, right?
Yeah.
I tried to sell myself out of it. I wish we would have recorded those first calls, because I was like, I don't want to be one of these guys that makes a book and expects you to look.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, because I just didn't, I know what a privilege it is, and I just said, fuck, do you think I have something? He's like, that's why I'm calling. So, okay, let's do it. And then it was like, okay, here's my laundry list of what I want to do, and we're going to do this, right? Yep. Can we make it affordable? Because I don't want to make something that's any bit unattainable for the average rat kid, because I was one of those.
Yeah.
And I remember going to Powell's in 1995 and going to the design book section and not being able to afford stuff.
Yeah, those like Taschen books that are all wrapped up in plastic, and
you just couldn't afford them. I would look through them, and I didn't even have a phone to here's the thing. It's like, if you go to the bookstore now with your phone, just something grabs you take a picture of it.
Yeah.
And if you can't afford that big honking thing, just go grab the 3 or 4 pages of stuff that really get you. So what? Go to a library and do that, and then go learn from that. It's like,
that's exactly what I tell my page layout students to do.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to have the book in your possession. You can just take away the inspiration.
You should bring me into that class, and I will fucking decimate those little bastards. I'll do it one-handed. I'll do it binary from my phone. I miss layout. In fact, I have a little thing that I do where if I see some horrific bit of verbiage somewhere, I'll go and just take that, cut and paste that paragraph, and then tear it apart and build a little hierarchy out of it. Here's the main idea. Here's the tiny little things. Here's how your eye works from the corner. I know how to
This makes me very happy.
make magazines and things and stuff, but I don't get to do it very much.
Yeah.
In fact, I use InDesign just for my old invoices, just to stay fluent, I suppose. I come from Quark, and building these, snowboarding magazines and catalogs and things and stuff, 64 pagers, big honking things, and loved that world. The book was 256 pages, my book, and loved building that out because I knew that world. I knew the idea of if your book is 8 by 10, you don't put a 1/2-inch border around it. You have to put 0.75 or 0.875 on the insides, because the way the book folds, the way it's bound, it's going to be up against the into the, I don't know what's the proper nomenclature, the crotch of the spine, in the nether regions, in the no man's land. You know what I'm saying? Shit digging around. You should, you gotta.
I like that term as much as anything else.
You gotta finesse that a little bit, and I still know that. So check it out. We have edge creep and creep even on our field notes. Like the way that you have to take into consideration when the field notes are folded and stapled, that's about an extra 1/8 inch.
Yeah.
So if your shit's perfectly centered, it's going to move an 1/8 inch towards that spine when the paper folds. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
So Brian Bedell, the unsung hero of field notes in Chicago, Brian Bedell, he understands that. So he'll send me these files, and my heart will beam, because it's like, ooh, he knows how to compensate for the fold of the fucking paper. I forgot. He didn't. So he rescues my ass all the time. It's pretty cool.
Oh, God.
I mean, what haven't we covered here? My favorite Pantone is Pantone 021. A lot of gain right now. Sorry. Anyway, all right. Well, the triumphs that I've had, I've done some wonderful podcasts in my backyard, and this might just be the best. So thank you for coming there, Sean Schumacher.
Well, thank you, Aaron. Oh, my God. Thank you so much. I am so grateful for all of your kind words and just for you being here on this dumb
just place
show.
me next to, just make sure that my podcast sits right next to Sturgill. Jason, just right next to it. So I don't know if we're alphabetical or numbers, but I want to be right next to him just because I'm a fan. God damn it. That's it. So please, however it stacks up, make sure I'm just sitting right next to him to really stink his podcast up. Right? I love that guy. He's awesome.
Yeah, shout out, Jason. Hi. Well, thank you again, Aaron, and thank all of you out there, including Jason Sturgill, for listening. This one is kind of a momentous episode because it is going to mark our 1-year anniversary of this show.
Well, congratulations, man.
One
That's
entire
awesome.
year. The show has been around the sun. So if you are, looking for something to do during these long, cold winter months, we now have a full day's worth of amazing design conversations with even more amazing designers to dive into. What's more, if you want to celebrate, the best thanks that I could get is if you could tell a friend, maybe leave a review for the show. And I mean, hey, I don't normally get into this much detail, but like if this show has made a difference or you just want to say something nice to me, I would love to hear about it. And if you drop it,
Let me get a word in here, Schumacher.
Yes.
Listen, you people. You got time on your hands. You're listening to all this other bullshit. Go listen to this thing, review it, go up and down your block and tell people all about this podcast, all right? Now, enough of this. You're pissing me off. You're hemming and hawing. Come on. He's a sweet guy. He's funny. He's got a great laugh. It's a fun podcast. Get out there and do what you got to do. All right. Go to Safeway. Okay. There's a lot of people going in and out of the Safeway, and tell all these people all about this.
It's got pretty good deals.
There
And
you
if
go.
if you've got a Safeway Club card, then you can get even better
do
deals.
the right thing, Portland and elsewhere and everywhere else in the world. Okay, and just help blow this thing up. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you. Yeah, and if you are hearing this for the first time and you like what you've heard, please subscribe, and then you'll get new episodes every other week. You can find it on your podcast player of choice by searching for Did I Do That? You found this one, so probably you're in good zones to find. Boy, I'm good at talking. But you can also go to our website, dididothat.design, which is where you can find some good images that go along with each and every episode. And if you want those images delivered directly to you, you can follow the show on Instagram or subscribe to our brand spanking new, not Instagram, our new newsletter, because I think Twitter will be maybe dead by the time that this episode is published. And I feel like I should have more than one thing for the show. So for our 1-year anniversary episode, I am Sean Schumacher. This is Did I Do That? And as always, at the end of every episode, we say,
Did I do that?
You did. You did indeed.
Thank you. Brett halitosis. Hal who? Yeah.
The terrible disease that the people at the mouthwash company invented.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. The Listerine company invented.
So there's no such thing as halitosis?
Nope. Not a medical condition.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you right now, my aunt has some gnarly bread. Just kidding. She definitely has it. Whatever. I'm just making that. I don't even. Okay. Yeah. Cool.